Hello, students. I welcome you all in the last lecture of the series Basics of Bio-Inorganic Chemistry. We already had discussed so many things on bio-inorganic chemistry in the previous three lectures, and this would be the last lecture on this topic. So, first of all, we will summarize what are the different terms which are related to bio-inorganic chemistry. So, these terms have been taken from this website. So first of all, active center. What is an active center? It is location in an enzyme where the specific reaction takes place. So we know that enzymes, they are biomolecules, they are macromolecules, they are protein structures, but not entire molecule is taking part in the chemical reaction. Only a certain part on the macromolecule is participating in the reaction, and that part is actually known as the active center. So the reactivity of an enzyme is actually decided by the presence of active center in it. Then allosteric enzyme. What are allosteric enzyme? They are actually the enzymes which can bind a small regulatory molecule that influences the catalytic activity. So they are not alone themselves displaying that catalytic function. Rather, they actually incorporate another small regulatory molecule that actually decides the catalytic activity of this enzyme. So they are actually made up of two parts. Then we have apoenzyme. So apoenzyme is what? An enzyme that lacks its metal center or prosthetic group. So in an enzyme, we know that the metal ions, they are present at the center, and the proteinaceous part behaves like the ligand around that metal center. So if you remove the metal ion from that, suppose a carbonic anhydrase, it contains zinc inside. So if zinc is not present with that enzyme, so what would you call it? This will be an apoenzyme. That is a metalloenzyme without a metal center, or the metal center, it is also known as the prosthetic group. So if you remove the prosthetic group from the enzyme, we call it as apoenzyme. Then ATP is a very commonly known term. It is adenosine 5 triphosphate, and it is said to be the universal energy source in the cells in the biological systems. So whenever a cell requires energy to perform a certain function, it performs the hydrolysis of ATP, and it has a 3-phosphate group attached to it. So for the first hydrolysis, it is converted to ADP, that is adenosine diphosphate, and 1 phosphate is released. Then for the second step, again the ADP, that is adenosine diphosphate, undergoes hydrolysis, and after that AMP is generated, that is adenosine monophosphate, and another phosphate group is released here. So that is the process when cell requires energy. So this hydrolysis of the ATP, it generates, it emits enough energy for the cell to perform its metabolic function. Now what if there is a generation of energy in the cell? Then there has to be some storage mechanism inside the cell for the storage of energy. So this ATP is also known as the storehouse of energy in the cell. So what happens whenever sufficient energy is produced by oxidation of the, suppose, glucose? So during the glucose oxidation, if energy is produced, so how that energy will be trapped inside the cell for future use? It will be there in the ATP. So ADP combines with 1-phosphate and generates the ATP. And that is how the energy is now trapped in the form of chemical energy. Similarly, AMP is converted to ADP, ADP is converted to ATP, and that is how the molecule known to store the energy in the chemical form. And once the cell require energy for certain function, then hydrolysis of the ATP generates or release that trapped energy. Now, biomembrane. Biomembrane is what? It is a sheet-like assembly of protein and lipids. So, any biomembrane, it can be surrounding a cell, it can be surrounding a cell organelle. So whenever we have a membrane in the biological system, basically it composed of the assemblies of the protein and lipids. So you can consider it as the micellar structure. It is a bilayer, and one end of it can be hydrophilic, another end can be hydrophobic, or sometimes both the ends hydrophobic and they are facing each other, and both the hydrophilic ends they are facing outside the membrane. Then calmodulin. Calmodulin is what? It is calcium binding protein, and it is involved in the metabolic regulation. So it is basically involved in the calcium transport inside the cell. Then we have a carboanhydrase. So as the name suggests, whenever you have a A's attached to any of the name, it is basically some enzyme. So this carboanhydrase is an enzyme, and the special thing about this enzyme is it contains zinc ion at the center. Now, what are the functions of this enzyme? So it can catalyze the reversible decomposition of carbonic acid to carbon dioxide in water. So this is a reversible decomposition, and the reverse of this can also happen. That is a conversion of carbon dioxide in water into carbonic acid. So this reaction inside the cell, it is actually when the glucose oxidation has been done, it is in that after that this reaction takes place, and the enzyme which is involved in this reaction is carboanhydrase. Then charge transfer complex. So charge transfer, as the name is suggesting, charge transfer means we are transferring electrons. So a complex is involved in these electron transfer reaction, and we call it as charge transfer complex. So basically it is an aggregate of two or more molecules in which the charge is transferred from a donor to an acceptor. So basically, they are not a single molecule which are there in the system. Rather, they are an aggregate of so many molecules. And electron is transferred from one molecule to other, then the next molecule, then the next molecule. In this manner, the entire complex is actually involved in the electron transfer mechanism. So after a certain step, the donor become the acceptor. So that is how charge transfer takes place. And important example of this type of complexes like cytochromes, they are basically involved in the formation of charge transfer complex, and they are involved in so many electron transfer reactions. Then chlorine. So chlorine is what? It is 2,3-dihydroporphyrin, and the structure resembles quite a lot to the chlorophyll. So basically, it is a reduced porphyrin with two non-fused saturated carbon atoms, that is carbon number 2 and carbon number 3 in one of the pyrrole ring. So that is the only difference between the chlorophyll and chlorine. Now, chlorophyll is what? It is magnesium complex. It contains magnesium at the center in the porphyrin, in which a double bond in one of the pyrrole ring, it has been reduced. So only one double bond is reduced in the case of chlorophyll. That is between the carbon number 17 and carbon number 18 in one of the pyrrole ring. So a fused cyclopentanone ring is also present in the chlorophyll structure. Chlorophyll, again, it is a very important biopigment present in the plant leaves and involved in the process of photosynthesis. Now, cisplatin. So cisplatin is what? It is a very important isomer of diamino dichloroplatinum complex, and this is in the cis isomer form. So what would be the name of cisplatin? Cis diamine dichlooroplatinum second, and both the chloro, they are on one side, both the amino group, they are on the other side, and this is how it is. It becomes a cis isomer, and it is used as an anti-tumor drug. So the major importance of this isomer is in the anti-tumor activities, because it interacts with the nucleic acid bases of DNA, and that is how it actually prevents the spread of cancerous tumor. Then what is a cluster? So metal centers, they are grouped together closely, and they can have a direct metal bonding, or it can be through some type of bridging ligand. So that is how a cluster is formed in the biological system. A very good example is ferredoxin, and this is involved in the electron transfer reactions. So in a cluster, you actually have so many metal centers involved. Like in the case of enzyme, you have only one metal center, but in a cluster, you can have so many metal centers in the same cluster. Then cobalamin. And cobalamin we discussed so many times in the previous lecture. It is actually vitamin B12 substituted choline cobalt third complex. So general name is vitamin B12, but it is actually what? It is a choline cobalt third complex. Then coenzyme. So coenzyme is what? It is a low molecular weight, non-protein organic compound. So it is basically, it is not, it is a part of the enzyme structure, but it is not protein at all. Rather, it is some sort of a nucleotide. And it is participating in the enzymatic reaction along with the enzyme. So yes, they are not alone themselves can serve the function of enzyme. Rather, they are the non-protein organic component of an enzyme having low molecular weight. So basically, it has been seen that a coenzyme can be separated from the enzyme, and at the time of the activity, at the onset of the reaction, they together they come together and perform the enzymatic reaction. Then cofactor. So cofactor is what? It is an organic molecule, or it can be an ion, usually a metal ion, that is required by an enzyme for the activity. Now, it can be attached either loosely. So in that case, it is known as a coenzyme. It can be separated reversibly from the enzyme, or sometime it is tightly bound inside. And in that case, it is known as the prosthetic group. So a metal ion is actually a cofactor, but it can be it can be a coenzyme as well as it can be a prosthetic group, and that depends upon the nature of metal bonding with the proteinaceous enzymatic part. So if it is loosely bound, that is it is a reversibly, it can be separated from the enzyme reversibly. Like at the onset of the reaction, it can be combined to the metal, and then afterwards it is released from there. So it is what? It is a coenzyme. But otherwise, generally, most of them, they are located at the center of the enzyme, and that is how a chelate complex is formed. And the bonding is so strong; they are so tightly held by the proteinaceous part. Then, in that case, they are known as the prosthetic group. Now, the next term we have is cooperativity. So it is the phenomena that binds an effector molecule to a biological system. It can either enhance or diminishes the binding of a successive molecule. So we can have hemoglobin for that. And its cooperativity is actually shown by during the oxygen transport mechanism. So it binds the effector molecule, and actually that enhances the further binding of the oxygen. So one hemoglobin molecule can actually combine with 4 oxygen molecules. Then corin. So corin is a type of ring, and it is actually the ring contracted porphyrin derivative that is missing a carbon. And this coring ring is involved in the vitamin B12 along with the cobalt third. It is making the complex known as cobalamin. Then cytochromes, so they are the heme protein that transfer the electrons and exhibit intense absorption bands. So along with that heme protein, they actually have iron centers in them in +2 and +3 oxidation state. These different iron centers, they are making a complex, and they transfer the electron from one end to other end. So that is how a cytochrome works. The iron undergoes oxidation reduction between the oxidation states of Fe2 plus and Fe3 plus. Then for the cytochromes, we have an enzyme that is cytochrome C oxidase. And this is not a cytochrome, rather it is an enzyme for the functioning of the cytochrome. So it is a major respiratory protein of animal and plant mitochondria. As we know that mitochondria, it is the organelle which is actually involved in the energy generation. And sometimes it is called as the energy house of the cell. So this cytochrome C oxidase is actually present in the mitochondria, and it is involved in the process of respiration, that is the oxidation of the glucose and consecutive generation of electrons, and then the formation of the ATPs. So it catalyzes the oxidation of Fe second cytochrome C and reduction of a dioxygen to water. So when the dioxygen is reduced, it will form water. So cytochrome C oxidase, this performs the function of this. It contains 2 heme proteins and 3 copper atoms, and they are arranged in 3 centers. Then we have cytochrome P450. So it is general term for a group of heme containing monooxygenases. The reaction with dioxygen, it appears to involve a higher oxidation state of iron, such as iron fourth can also be possible of making a double bond with the oxygen. So this has been seen in the case of cytochrome P450. Then cytoplasm, so it is the part of the protoplasm in the cell outside of and surrounding the nucleus. So when you are not including the fluid that is filled inside the nucleus, but it is actually present in the cell surrounded by the cell membrane, this fluid is called as the cytoplasm. Then we have dehydrogenase. So this is an oxidoreductase which catalyzes the removal of hydrogen. So as the name is suggesting, means removal of the hydrogen, and A is represent an enzyme. So dehydrogenase is basically an enzyme involved in the removal of hydrogen. So whenever the hydrogen is removed, you can expect the oxidation reaction. After that, we have desferrioxamine, or commonly known as DFO. So it is a chelating agent actually, which is used worldwide in the treatment of iron overload condition. Whenever you have an excess of iron inside the blood, in that case, this chelating agent, that is desferrioxamine, it actually removes selectively the ions from the fluid, such as the hemochromatosis and thalassemia, in which iron remains in the excessive form. So this is a chelating agent which forms a very stable complex with the iron, and that is how iron is selectively removed from the blood. Then we have a dismutase enzyme. So this is the enzyme that catalyzes a disproportionation reaction. Then entatic state. So what is this state? It is actually state of an atom or group which has its geometric or electronic condition adapted for function. So it is derived from the Greek word entasis, which means tension. So entatic state actually represent when the molecule is ready to perform some function. So it is that state of the molecule or group of atom. So in that geometry, in that electronic configuration, it actually perform its function, and then it comes back to its original condition. Then we have enzymes. So enzymes are what? They are basically the macromolecules, and they function as biocatalyst by increasing the reaction rate. So they are none other than the catalyst, but of biological origin, and many other times they have some metal ion at their center, combined by a coordination bond. So their basic function is to perform the reaction to increase the reaction rate. Like we know that in the case of biological system, temperature is a prime condition. That temperature inside the biological system, it has to be maintained at an optimal level. Beyond that category, like generally in the chemical reaction, what we do, we provide the heat energy for the reaction to perform. So we generally increase the temperature of the reaction mixture, but that is not possible in the case of biological system. We cannot increase the temperature of a cell in order to perform the metabolic reactions, because for a biological system, you know that many macromolecules, they are so temperature sensitive that they can actually lose their active structure. So in that case, all the reactions actually, they have to be performed at that optimal temperature only. So for that case, we have the enzymes. So they are the biocatalysts. They are there to perform the biological reaction at that particular temperature. Then we have FeMO cofactor. So this is actually an inorganic cluster, and like I told you, clusters, they have more than one metal ion in them. So the inorganic cluster, it is found in the FeMO protein of molybdenum nitrogenase. So they are actually a cofactor found in the nitrogenase enzyme, and this nitrogenase enzyme performs the catalytic conversion of nitrogen to ammonia. So it is basically involved in the process of nitrogen fixation. Then we have ferredoxin. So ferredoxin is a protein which contains more than one iron and acid labile sulfur that displays electron transfer activity, but not classical enzyme function. So classically, the enzymes, they are known to perform a certain reaction. They convert the reactant into the product. But if you talk about the ferredoxin, So it is generally, you can also consider it as a cluster because it contains more than one iron and acid labile sulfur group, and their basic function is just to transfer the electrons. So they are not actually a proper enzyme by their function, but yes, their structure resembles an enzyme. Then we have ferritin. So ferritin is an iron storage protein consisting of a shell of 24 protein subunits. So it encapsulates up to 4,500 iron atoms in the form of a hydrated iron third oxide. Then we have heme. So heme is a near planar coordination complex which is obtained by the iron and dianionic porphyrin. So iron atom in the +2 oxidation state and dianionic porphyrin, they together make a coordination complex which is actually planar in nature, and we call it heme. Now when this heme is combined with a globin protein, you call it hemoglobin. So this heme is actually responsible for performing the oxygen transport mechanism by hemoglobin. Hemoglobin is actually the protein part of the hemoglobin, in which you have heme as a cofactor and globin as the proteinaceous structure. Then we have heme erythrin. So heme erythrin is a dioxygen carrying protein from the marine invertebrates, and it contains only the oxo-bridged dinuclear iron center. So the function of heme erythrin is very much similar to hemoglobin, and it is also carrying the dioxygen, but the function is performed in the marine invertebrates. Then we have hemocyanin. So this is also a similar type of protein, a dioxygen carrier protein, and it is also carrying the oxygen in the invertebrate, but it serves the function in arthropods and mollusks. And this contain actually dinuclear type of 3 copper sites. And we also have hemoglobin. So hemoglobin is there in the vertebrates, and it is basically dioxygen carrier carrying heme protein of the red blood cell. So erythrin, hemocyanin, and hemoglobin, they all are performing the similar function, although their cofactor is different in the three cases, and they perform the same function, that is carrying the dioxygen, but in different organisms they are doing it. Then we have HIP-IP, that is high potential iron sulfur protein, and this is commonly known as ferredoxin. So it is actually the cluster which undergoes oxidation reduction between the 4Fe4 sulfur 2 positive and 4Fe4 sulfur 3 positive state. So basically they are the cluster compounds, and they are involved in the oxidation reduction reaction, with the help of which they actually perform the electron transfer reaction. Then we have holoenzyme. So it is actually an enzyme which contain the characteristic prosthetic group and metals. So the proteinaceous part, that is the enzymatic part, and the prosthetic group, that is tightly bound metal ion, together they are known as the holoenzyme. Then we have ion channel. So what is an ion channel? It is there in the cell membrane, and it enable the ions to flow rapidly through the membrane in a thermodynamically downhill direction after an electrical or chemical impulse. So they follow certain impulse, and they work against the concentration gradient, and that is how they perform their function by the hydrolysis of ATP. So their structure usually consists of 4 to 6 membrane spanning domains, and this number determines the size of the pore and thus the size of the ion to be transported. Now, next is ionophore, and it is actually a compound which can carry specific ions through the membrane. So, ionophore, they are involved. Suppose, say for example, we have ionophore for the transport of iron. So, they are actually involved in the passive diffusion of the ions along the membrane. We have ion pumps, and they enable the ion to flow through the membrane in thermodynamically uphill direction by the use of energy source. So they open and they close upon the binding and subsequent hydrolysis of ATP. So usually they transport more than one ion towards the outside or inside the membrane. So when you talk about the ion channel, the movement of ion is possible in both the directions. and that is in the thermodynamically downhill direction. But in the case of ion pumps, it is just opposite. The movement of the ion is possible only in the one direction, and they always require the energy source. So we get inside the cell, the energy is obtained by hydrolysis of ATP, and actually they are working against the concentration gradient. Then we have metalloenzyme. So it is actually the enzyme that in the active state contains one or more metal ions. Then we have mitochondria. So as we know that it is very important organelle in the cell uh, structure, and it is known as the powerhouse of the cell. So it is specifically called that because it is a cytoplasmic organelle which produce ATP by the oxidative phosphorylation, and it can also generate it can also perform the hydrolysis of the ATP to generate the energy. Now, a model, it is a synthetic coordination entity that closely approaches the properties of a metal ion in a protein and yields useful information concerning biological structure and function. Then we have myoglobin. So myoglobin is actually monomeric dioxygen binding heme protein of the muscle tissue. So it is very much similar to the hemoglobin, but it is a monomeric structure. Hemoglobin is actually, it has four such centers, but in the myoglobin we have only one center. So it is a monomeric dioxygen binding heme protein, and especially it is found in the muscle tissues, and structurally very much similar to only a single subunit of hemoglobin. Then we have nucleic acids. So nucleic acids are the macromolecules, and they are composed of sequences of nucleotides that perform several functions in the living cell. For example, like the storage of the genetic information. So that is specifically present inside the DNA and RNA in the terms of gene sequencing. Then we have nucleosides. So we have nucleosides and nucleotides. These are the two very, very different terms. And let us see what is the difference between them. So when we talk about nucleosides, they are actually the compound in which a purine or a pyrimidine base is a beta nitrogen glycosidically bound to carbon 1 of either 2 oxyderibose or D-ribose. So when you have 2 oxyderibose sugar, then you get a DNA, and when you have a D-ribose, then you have an RNA, but it is without any phosphate group. So yes, you have a pyridine or purine base attached to the sugar only, you call it nucleoside. But once this nucleoside, it is attaching itself with the phosphate groups, then it becomes a nucleotide. So a nucleoside becomes a nucleotide by attaching a phosphate group to it. So a nucleoside with one or a more phosphate group, they can be esterified mainly to the third or the fifth position of the sugar moiety. Then we have oxygen evolving complex. So they are known as the OEC. Then photosynthesis. So we know that it is a metabolic process in the plant, and certain bacteria that uses light energy absorbed by the chlorophyll and other photosynthetic pigments for the reduction of carbon dioxide, followed by the formation of organic compound. So this is the key of energy storage in the biological system. And during this process, the radiant energy of sun, it is trapped inside the cell and converted into the form of chemical energy. And when this food reaches to the cell, now that chemical energy which was stored inside the food, it is now converted, it is liberated for the use, and that is how the solar energy reaches to the biological system. Then plastocyanin. So plastocyanin is an electron transfer protein, and it contains a type of a copper site involved in the plant, and also in the cyanobacterial photosynthesis they are found, which transfers electron to the photosystem 1. So we know that in the photosynthesis we have photosystem 1 and we have photosystem 2, and electrons are transferred inside the photosystem 1, then it is transferred to photosystem 2, and finally they are trapped, and carbon dioxide is reduced. So these plastocyanin, they are the electron transfer proteins playing a very important role in the photosynthesis, whether we talk about the photosynthesis performed by plant or photosynthesis performed by the cyanobacteria. Then we have Reiske protein, and it is the iron sulfur protein of the mitochondrial respiratory chain. It contains 2 iron and 2 sulfur cluster. Then rubredoxin, it is a single iron sulfur protein and it functions as the electron carrier. Then we have SOD. So SOD is superoxide dismutase. This SOD was so many times came into discussion in the previous lecture. SOD is superoxide dismutase and it is basically involved in the uh, reaction when you have H2O2 peroxide. So this is actually performing the catalysis of the disproportionation of superoxides. Then SORID bands. So they are actually strong absorption band in the blue region of optical absorption spectrum of a heme protein. And they are the characteristic of the heme protein and they can be identified by that band. Then what is the substrate? So it is a compound on which the catalyst is working. It is the substrate. Then we have a trace element. So these elements, they are required for the physiological functions in very small amount. For example, cobalt, copper, fluoride, iron, iodine, manganese, molybdenum, nickel, then selenium, vanadium, tungsten, zinc. These elements are required for the different physiological functions, but in only in very trace quantities. Then type 1, 2, 3 copper. So they are different classes of copper binding sites in the protein. And this classification is done by their spectroscopic properties as copper second. So suppose in the type 1 we have a blue copper center and the copper is coordinated to at least 2 imidazole nitrogens from the his and 1 sulfur from cis. His is histidine and cis is cysteine. In type 2 you have a or non-blue copper sites. The copper is mainly bound to the imidazole nitrogen from his, and type 3 copper center, they comprise the 2 spin coupled copper ion bound to the imidazole nitrogen. Then what is the zinc finger? So it is a domain found in certain DNA binding protein. It comprises of a helix loop structure in which a zinc ion is coordinated to 2 4 cis sulfurs, the remaining ligands being his. Then the basics of enzyme reactions, which is actually the biocatalysis process. So how the biocatalyst works, before understanding that, let us see what are the basic functions a catalyst perform. So these are a few very basic functions of a catalyst. What does a catalyst do? First of all, it accelerates the chemical reaction, that is the rate enhancement. Then it participate in the reaction, but it is never consumed. So you can expect that at the end of the reaction, this catalyst is always regenerated and it is never involved in the product formation. Then it stabilizes the transition state and provides the lower activation energy pathway for the reaction to get complete. Then the next property is it do not alter the chemical equilibrium. It only enhances the rate of the reaction, right? But it never changes the chemical equilibrium. Then it reduces actually the amount of the time required to attain the equilibrium. So this is the function of the catalyst. Now, let us see the principle of complementarity. So, active sites of enzyme, they tend to be more complementary in the transition state than they are in the actual substrate. So, these complementary sites, they are actually present in the active state of the enzyme and they actually generates the active structure of enzyme at the onset of the reaction. Then pre-formation of the transition state by strained enzyme. So it is called as the entactic state. It is actually the geometry or the coordination number or the oxidation state which has been adopted by the specific part of the enzyme during the reaction. So it leads to the pre-formation of the transition state. Now, energy aspects which are involved, they are actually small activation energy. Statistical aspects are more productive encounters between the reaction partners, and kinetic aspect involve the faster reaction. So now let us see the coordination for the uptake, transport and storage of iron. So some basic properties of iron are usually it is showing the oxidation of iron second aqueous to iron third aqueous under the in vivo condition. Then in Sabulus function of iron second high spin formation of the radicals. So this is very important when we talk about the oxygen transport, dioxygen transport. Then Fe third non-soluble at the pH 7. So coordination of Fe third by complexing agent is unambiguous. Now consider this reaction here. It is showing the condensation to cluster and colloids. So this type of condensation is actually leading to the formation of clusters, and this is the colloid, and that is how the heme protein is generated. Then related affinity to different ligand. So it has affinity for the sulfur, oxygen, nitrogen, and it can switch from the high to low spin configuration in the medium strength of ligand. Then complexation actually interconnected with the electron and proton transfer. So we have Fe3 plus bound to the ligand and accepting the electron and hydrogen, and there how it is now converted to Fe2 plus and the ligand is liberated along with the hydrogen. So you can see that this is an electron transfer reaction. Also you can consider it as the proton transfer reaction. So protons are transferred to the ligand here. Now we have siderophores. Siderophores are found in the microorganisms and they involve the two groups of chelating agent. First is the hydroxamate and second is the catecholate. So their antibiotic function is shown by highly active octahedral coordination of iron third. So when you have catecholate, you get apoenterobactin, and when you have hydroxamate as the chelating group, you get mycobactin. So these two different compounds, they are involved as a siderophores in the microorganisms. Then in the protein complexes also these iron moieties are found. So suppose in the case of the transport, you have transferrin involved, which is responsible for the coordination of iron by carboxy and phenolate groups of the residues, and that is how iron is transported within the cell. Then uptake of the two iron third and one bicarbonate ion. Stability of the complex decreases with decreasing pH. High affinity of apotransferrin protection against the infection. They're not very specific. So you have chromium third also, you can have aluminum tripositive, copper dipositive, manganese dipositive, anything can be there. Then release of the iron third. So here reduction of iron third to the iron second takes place, and that is how they are released from the binding by porphyrin. So in this manner, the transferrins, they are involved in the uptake and transport of the iron species. Then for the storage purpose, we have ferritin. So all the iron, it remains stored in the ferritin, and when it is required, it is released from there. So they are actually the high symmetry apoferritin, and they are known as F432, hollow sphere built from the protein, having the inner diameter of 7 nanometer and outer diameter of 13 nanometer. Now their capacity is up to 4,500 iron tri-positive ion inside the cavity. So they are involved in the biomineralization. Then carboxylate groups for the iron third binding. We have core structure related to the ferrihydrite. Then exchange via channels. So we have diameter 1 nanometer involved in the tunneling of hydrophilic or hydrophobic character via residues. So release of the iron and the iron second via hydrophilic channels, it takes place from the ferritin, and that is how the stored iron is released from the complex. Now, hard ions like sodium positive, K positive, magnesium dipositive, and calcium dipositive, they are actually having a basic characteristic of ionic radius, charge radius ratio, coordination number, and preferred donors. So, by according to their characteristic, they combine with the proteins inside the biological system, and they perform various functions. Now, because of the high charge density in them, that is a charge to radius ratio, they are what they are known as the hard ions. So their concentration in the intracellular and extracellular fluid, it varies a lot. Like you can see the sodium ion, it is selectively found in the extracellular fluid, very high in the extracellular fluid, but potassium remains very high in the intracellular fluid. But however, there is no significant difference in the concentration of magnesium and calcium ions in intra and extracellular fluids. So you can see that the sodium ion, it is always selectively pumped out of the cell, and potassium ion is selectively transported inside the cell. So they are actually labile bonding in the solution, and fast diffusion is shown along a concentration gradient. Sodium and potassium, they are actually the distributed electrolyte. Their function is stabilizing the membrane nucleotide and enzyme. They fastly transfer the information by diffusion. So they are highly volatile, and diffusion control. Maintenance of the concentration gradient is done by pump storage model, where the active transport, it is involving the ion pumps and a protein triggered by the enzyme. And in the passive transport, we have ionophores and chelating ligand ion channels, and also proteins. So these active and passive transport, they both are involved in the maintenance of ionic balance between intracellular and extracellular fluid. Then we have passive ion transport summary. So how the passive ion transport takes place alongside the membrane. So here you can see that the carrier mechanism is very slow. This is the extracellular fluid. This is the intracellular fluid, and we have a lipophilic membrane between here. So this is the ionophore and how it performs the function. So the carrier mechanism is shown by the ionophore. It takes up the ion from here and selectively transfer it inside the cell membrane. Then this is a channel pore. So from the channel pore also, selectively the red colored ion is transferred inside the cytoplasm. And this is the gated channel. So gated channel, they can open and close at some times, and they also allow the entry of the ion along with the concentration gradient inside the cell cytoplasm. Then the ionophores which are involved in the passive transport, they are actually analogous to the crown ethers or cryptins, which are also called as the macrocycles. So what happens? These macrocycle have a definite size cavity at the center, and it is capable of selective uptake of a particular ion. So they are actually showing the chelate effect, and therefore they are thermodynamically and kinetically very, very stable. Also, they are highly selective in nature, and that is due to a definite dimension of the cavity inside them. Then we have distinct polarity inside and outside the complex, and the template effect of the alkali metal, that is conformational change of the ionophore, is also seen here. So selectivity actually depends on the number of coordination centers of the ligand, and it is adjusted by the optimum conformation. Now, these natural ionophores, they sometimes also act as antibiotics, because actually they are responsible for the passive transport of the ion. So, transport of alkali metal through the biological membrane by the carrier mechanism is shown by them, and perturbation of the electrolyte level in the bacteria can be performed if you just disturb these ionophores. So, in that case, you can selectively remove the bacteria, selectively disrupt their ion transport mechanism, and destroy them. So the K-valinomycin is one of the molecule known for this function. Then we have transmembrane protein with a tube structure, which are called as the ion channels. So these ion channels are, some examples are given here, like gramicidin A. It is a simple example of ion channel, and formed from the integral membrane protein. Its length can be up to 3 nanometer, and it contains two tubes in a row that can perorate in a membrane. Then they are anti-parallel helical aggregate of the protein. We can have some more complex channels as well here, and their building unit contains 4 to 5 homologous membrane proteins, which are known as helices, and immediate lining contains the polar groups having fixed charges. So they are very specific, and that is due to their diameter and chemistry inside the channel. So they only allow the entry of a certain ions, and restrict the entry of all the other ions. Then what do you mean by the gates? So you know that in a channel a gate is a thing that can remain open and it can be closed. So in the channel, in the ion channel, you can have gates and they actually function according to the voltage across the channel. So they are functioning a important subject of the pharmaceutical research, and they are opening by the neurotransmitters or some electrical impulse or by presence of certain ions like calcium dipositive ions, and they are sometimes blocked. So their blocking can be an important biological function, like a blocking of the K plus channel by H plus, so it sends you sore. Then active transport is performed by the ion pumps. So here the transmembrane protein, they are involved and they act against the concentration gradient. So a particular ion can be selectively accumulated inside the cell, or it can be selectively thrown outside of the cell. The structure of the ion pumps, it actually involve carboxylate groups or hydrophilic groups, and they are basically responsible for binding the active species. They selectively be for their selectivity by formation of E1 and E2 product. They are produced via dephosphorylation, and energy consuming ion transport mechanism is shown where the energy production is done by the hydrolysis of the ATP. So symport is what when you have simultaneous transport of anions and cations in the same direction, but it can also be antiport where the transport of the ions of same charge takes place in the opposite direction. Some examples are like sodium, potassium, and magnesium ATPase. So it selectively throw the sodium's ion outside and bring in the potassium ion inside. This is the flip-flop mechanism shown by this ATPase, and you can see that first of all, the sodium ion is entering inside the cell, and binding of the sodium takes place the conformation of E1. Now, when it binds, it takes up the energy, and it is held by, it is wrapped by the molecule. Now it is sent outside the cell like this, release of the sodium, and now it is what? It is the conformation E2. So the membrane molecule which is involved in this type of mechanism, it is actually taking two conformation. First is the E1 mechanism, and second is E1 conformation, and second is the E2 conformation. Now once the sodium is released outside the cell membrane, now potassium enters inside the E2 conformation, and now it is transferred to inside of the cell. So release of the K plus from the conformation E1, and now conformation E1 is now taking up the Na plus from inside the cell and throwing them outside. So this is what the phosphorylation and dephosphorylation reaction taking place continuously, in which sodium ions, they are selectively thrown out of the cell, and potassium ion, they are actively accumulated inside the cell cytoplasm. And we have some toxins which affect this ion transport. So this is the digitoxygenin foxglove, and it blocks the structure of ATPase. So it inhibits the dephosphorylation and increase of the sodium and calcium due to the antiport system. The consequences are like muscle contraction or even the heart palpitation. Then it is actually generated by the poison of the fugo fish, tetradotoxin, which blocks the Na plus channels. The magnesium is found in the catalysis of the phosphate transfer, and you know that it is a hard ion. So it is showing the coordination number 6 and prefer multiple charge ligand in the form of phosphates. Basic functions performed by the magnesium dipositive ion, they are charge compensation, for example, ATP, reduction of the high concentration of negative charges, then polarization, increase of the nucleophilic character, then fixation of the reactants. So the mechanism that is SN2 with the pseudo rotation is shown here. You can see the conformational changes during the sodium potassium pump, and on the average a human adult synthesizes and uses an amount of ATP per day which correspond to the body weight. This is the hydrolysis of ATP. It takes place by the using of magnesium dipositive ion. So here the ATP is protected. Now the ATP is activated here, and finally what happens after the activation of the ATP? This phosphate is removed. So this in this manner, the magnesium plays a very important role in the phosphate transfer reaction, and the phosphate transfer to the creatinine via MgATP takes place here. Phosphate transfer to the glycerate, it takes place by the formation of 2-phosphoglycerate. Calcium is also known to have a great variety of functions, and structural functions are like biomineralization. So it can be from 10 gram to 70 kgs in the non-solid form, and it has a strong influence on the protein binding. So it is also involved as a secondary messenger or a trigger, or you can say the activation function. So the binding to the acidic mu2 carboxy group of the protein in the high coordination number 7 to 8, it is showing the irregular coordination geometry. And the lability of the complex, it allows fast structural changes. So the high concentration gradient, that is the calcium dipositive pumps in the sarcoplasmic reticulum. Interconnections of the electrolyte transports are shown here in the mechanism. So you have a membrane here. This is extracellular fluid. This is intracellular fluid, and you can see that the along with the potassium monopositive ion, the calcium dipositives, they are also actively thrown out of the cell. We have activation of the enzyme energetic processes. Here activation is done by the calmodulin, which is known for the calcium modulating protein, and a conformational change of the apocalmodulin by calcium binding takes place. The recognition and the activation of enzyme can be done here. So this is the calmodulin inactive apo enzyme. It combines with the calcium dipositive calmodulin, and now it becomes active. Now it combines with the substrate, and now it performs the enzymatic action. So muscle contraction is also one of the example here. Translation of the electrical stimulus into the chemical stimulus takes place. So we have a depolarization of the membrane, opening of the sodium channels, release of the calcium dipositive from the acidic storage protein. So we have calciquestrin. Calciquestrin contains up to 50 calcium binding sites in the form of carboxylate groups of glutamine and aspartic acid, and uptake of the calcium dipositive by troponin carbon, it takes place along with the coupling with the ATP hydrolysis. So this is the quiz from today's lecture. You have to prepare a list of all the applications of bioinorganic chemistry in the field of medicine. So till now we have discussed so many important applications in the field of medicine in the 4 lectures. So you have to prepare a list. Along with that, you can also search the content on the Google, and you can go for the literature review, and that is how you can prepare a detailed list of all the possibilities in which the bioinorganic chemistry can be applied for the therapeutic uses or in the field of medicine. So these are the references for today's lecture, and that is how we have discussed the different aspects of bioinorganic chemistry, different terms involved, how they are defined, how you can apply the concept of inorganic chemistry in the biological systems, and how they perform their function. What are the selectivity criteria for the biological system for the selecting the ions for their particular usage. And in the end, we discussed different functions, different important ions, how they are playing their role inside the biological system. So I hope the lectures were clear to you, and this is from this lecture we are concluding our discussion on bioinorganic chemistry. So thank you so much.